Hi guys, welcome to Joyful Living. I am so happy to have you all here. My name is Joy, and this week we are actually starting a new topic because it is now the month of May. So we will be talking about relationships. If you want to look at any of the past videos I have, they're all up on my page. They're all different topics, but this topic is one, I'm going to be honest, was really challenging for me. Because relationships are just so many different things, right? I'm going to be talking more so about romantic relationships. But also I think these principles apply to every area of your life, right? Because how you do one thing can bleed into other areas, right? So relationships. So this week I'm going to kind of talk to you guys, not in depth about my relationship past, but I want to get the hard hitters of my mistakes that I've made in past relationships, because we all know that relationships can be tricky and they are challenging because we're all human, we're all imperfect, we're all trying to figure it out as we go day by day. So I want to give you guys some of the pitfalls, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how I grew up, some of the pitfalls that I've discovered, and things I want you to evaluate in your own personal relationships, because relationships are something that you can't get away from. Right? And good or bad, right? You have relationships with everything in your life, but especially the romantic ones. I will say picking a partner is one of the most important things that you can do, picking a romantic partner, because it can either build you up or break you down. And I'll get into that a little bit. So I want to talk about my past and what I learned growing up. And all of this is not necessarily like what my parents taught me, but there's kind of an unspoken learning that you can do in the home, right? Where you pick up on, and I don't want to say all the bad stuff that your parents do, but you pick up on the dynamics of relationships, and you pick up on the way that your parents carry themselves. And there's things that I look back at now that I realize I learned in my upbringing. You know, it's often said that by the time you're 7 years old, your whole worldview has been created. And everything else from there is unlearning and having to relearn. So what did I learn, right? Digging into relationships, I want to jump into it because this might be a little bit longer one, but it's good, so buckle up. Growing up, I grew up with love modeled as physical presence, not emotional presence. My parents had 5 kids by the time they were age 29, and the kids were age 7 and under, so they started at 21 and they weren't, making bank. So they were very physically present. I had both parents in the household. I was blessed to have that. However, I didn't get a lot of emotional presence. Yeah, I didn't get a lot of emotional presence because they were too busy keeping the roof over our heads, right? And making sure that the bills got paid and making sure that they were able to feed us and keep me and my brothers from killing each other. Love modeled to me growing up was self-sacrifice. It was self-sacrifice. It's what do you need, right? I didn't really learn to have needs. I didn't have needs. I didn't express needs, because the more you had needs, the more noise you made, the more of an inconvenience you were. And these are, I will say, I want to do a disclaimer. I love my parents. I am very blessed with the way that I grew up. They were just kids having kids. Okay? I can't say I would do any better in this day and age. No, I have Google, so it might be a little better, but even still, you can't teach what you don't have. And so my parents hadn't learned a lot of that, and so they just did what they could. For me, growing up, I didn't develop a strong sense of self-worth, confidence, independence, or a clear sense of identity. So I didn't have anybody in my life telling me, this is who you are. And, my parents obviously gave their love and they shared their love, but it didn't ever seep into who I was. I didn't build my identity as somebody who was independent and valued and worthy. Like, that's not what I grew up doing. I grew up just trying to make it. Because you imagine, it's me and 4 boys. We're all really close together in age. We're all trying to make it. Fighting, bickering, all that stuff, kind of getting lost in the mix. I was isolated in chaos, if that makes sense. So I felt like I really didn't have a lot of emotional presence growing up, even though I was surrounded by people all the time. I did not know peace. I didn't know peace ever growing up. That was not a thing. And in fact, quiet weirded me out. Let's just say that. So I learned early that love comes from others and your value is based on how you show up for people. Now, this may seem out of left field because I'm talking about romantic relationships, but stay with me because what I learned, and I've gone through therapy and done a lot of growth and self-work and self-reflection, I've learned that your childhood forms how you view relationships, how you watch your parents' interactions, how you watch the people in your life and the people that you're supposed to look up to, how they deal with romantic relationships is how you see love. And so with my parents, it was very much like my dad wasn't very good at emotional regulation and my mother just felt the need to placate for safety, and that's just, that was just what it was. That was just my headspace I grew up in. So I didn't really have a lot of understanding around who I was, especially in relationships, but even at all, And so I want you to think for a second about how you grew up and what you saw your parents do. Were they fighting all the time or were they never fighting? There's the opposite spectrum of I never saw my parents fight, so I feel the need to have to be perfect all the time. I've heard that as well. So there was a core pattern in there. And by the way, I'm looking to the left because I'm looking at my notes. There was a core pattern for me. And my repeated pattern was self-abandonment. So I had a lot of relationships in my early teens and my early 20s. Honestly, just seeking love. I didn't grow up with the belief that I was valuable independently. I felt like people had to tell me that I was loved, that I had to earn love, that I had to look outside of myself for love. And so I spent a lot of my late teens, not even late, mid-teens, early 20s, looking for love, looking for people to tell me that I was enough, looking for people to carry my burdens. And regardless of how you grew up, you get dealt the cards that you're dealt, and then you have to figure out how you're going to move forward from that. So for me, I had to figure out how I wanted to live. And I lived that way for a long time. I was saying yes when I meant no in many areas. Staying when I should have left when people revealed their true colors. There's forgiveness and there's healing and there's decisions on who stays and who goes. But there's also, I had this fear of abandonment growing up. Oh, this is going to be a really vulnerable episode, so take it or leave it. I had a fear of abandonment growing up. And what I didn't realize back then and what I realize now is I was afraid that everybody else was abandoning me. But the truth was I was abandoning myself. I was abandoning myself. And even still that hits because it's true. I don't do that anymore. We all have our moments that's not who I am anymore. I spent a lot of time becoming what others needed instead of being what I needed for myself. Like I said, growing up, my idea of love was I'll be whatever you want me to be as long as you love me. And, I don't know how closely you relate, but I participated in people-pleasing, self-objectification. I have been conventionally attractive since, middle school. And it's a double-edged sword. And you can say, oh, your life is so hard because you have pretty privilege. Yes and no. Okay? When you are conventionally attractive or when you stand out in a certain way, good or bad, it comes with good and bad. Because I grew up, and as I got more attractive, I would date and I would, go on dates with people and I would build relationships with people who saw me as, I don't want to say an object because that sounds bad, but they saw me more of this pretty figure rather than a human with needs and feelings. And so there was some relationships I was in that when I started having needs or the cracks started showing or I felt overwhelmed, they were like, that's weird. I didn't expect you to have needs. Essentially. I didn't expect you to be a human and be different and have struggles. I just wanted the outside. I just wanted the wrapping. right? I just signed up for you being pretty. Like that's the reality of, that was the reality of my early 20s. And sometimes, it doesn't happen to me because I don't entertain it, right? I'm different now, but I would join in on that. I thought I was nothing more than just what I looked like on the outside. And that's the furthest thing from the truth, because I'm way more interesting, okay, than I am attractive. And I am attractive, I would like to think. And I participated in choosing low standard relationships just to feel loved. So, like going to the bargain bin at a thrift store. It sounds so bad. But like I want to have a stark contrast. Like I just want you to know I'm not this person anymore. And like I feel like warmth because it's hard to talk about. And I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud of the decisions I made in my early 20s and, who I was. But I grew up not knowing any better. That doesn't excuse the behavior, but it does explain it. You know what I mean? And so once you know better, it's important for you to do better. And honestly, my heart in sharing these relationship missteps is so that you can feel, I don't know, you can feel my pain with me, that you can, maybe you relate, maybe you feel any piece of this, whether it is feeling like you don't fit in, or feeling like you always had to people please, or if you're an eldest daughter, you have the eldest daughter syndrome. I have 2 older brothers. That doesn't mean anything, because I still had a different expectation placed on me than my brothers, and I was a very emotionally aware child. I don't know if you've ever been that, like, oh, you're so empathetic. Oh, you're so mature for your age. Oh, you can read the room so well. That's a trauma response, babe. That's a trauma response. That's keeping the temperature, keeping your eyes on the temperature of the household, because you want to know when to protect yourself, when to stay in a situation, when to leave. Like that is learned behavior for safety. You know what I mean? And so what did that look like in relationships? So that was my mentality growing up, especially when I started exploring that stuff. And it looked like validation, but not me giving myself validation. What it looked like in my relationships, I looked for love and I looked for men, honestly, to validate me, to define me, and to fix my life. And that's not fair, because no one person is going to be able to cover all your needs. That's not what people are for. People will let you down. That's just what it is. We're imperfect. We're human. I've definitely hurt some people and made some mistakes. Just like anyone. In relationships, I became the perfect girlfriend. Air quotes, because who knows if that actually is what those men experienced. But I totally lost myself completely. So it was kind of like, I'll be whatever you want me to be as long as you tell me I'm lovable. And Joy, I don't know who she is, but your girlfriend, gonna be great. And, my boundaries would slowly move. I didn't have solid boundaries. And so they slowly moved until I had none. And in certain relationships, I felt like a shell of myself. So I'm going to get into some specific lessons that I learned through my relationships and problems that I faced. Ignoring red flags. It only takes one. It only takes one red flag for you. And now, here's the difference. It's not like, there's this whole thing on social media where it's like the grass is always greener, and like there's a difference between somebody who has integrity and is a good person and is aligned with you and makes a mistake or has struggles or has their baggage just like anyone else, versus someone who's selfish or narcissistic or abusive or not for you or not aligned. Like there's a difference. So use your noggin and your like skills of, what's the word? Your investigative skills, if you will, to decide what red flags are for you. Like there's deal breakers for me. Like you're not going to raise your voice at me. You're not going to put your hands on me. And like growing up for the longest time, like that was my big line, was you're not going to put your hands on me. But like everything else before that was like, oh, well, at least you're like still here. It's like weird. It's like I just want to go back to that young Joy and just like bop her upside the head, because I'm like, what were you doing, you crazy girl? So I ignored red flags, And you got to think about it. What red flags are you ignoring? So I thought I saw things early, but I chose to stay. I'm not going to break down all the red flags you could get into. You let me know if you want to do that. And then when things did come up, this one time, this guy I was dating, he told me to pick up his iPad for something, and I opened it, and it's literally a text thread. I don't dig through people's things. I don't need to, but it's on a silver platter here that you're texting somebody else, taking a break. Instead of walking away, I took a break, and I was going to therapy at that time, and I was so frustrated with my therapist. So after like a month or so, I was like, I just feel stuck in this. And she's like, okay, well, what can you do? And I'm like, oh yeah, I can break up with him. I have that power. Like, no, we should have left as soon as that happened, if not before, because you realized he wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, we're not going to get into all that. But ignoring red flags. I don't want this to be super long, so I'm going to try to go quick, but I have a lot of opinions, right? Choosing potential over reality. This is a big one. If you are with somebody, but you're with them because you want to fix them, you need to leave. Or if you're with them because you see them as potential, I treated relationships like Build-A-Bear projects. Like, you've got a good base, but I need to fill you with fluff, and I need to get a heart in you, and I need to get you know what I mean? Like, you go to Build-A-Bear and you pick out all the different things. No. Stop it. Drop it, ma'am. We are not Build-A-Bears, okay? We are not building men. That is not our job. Respectfully. Also, if you are with somebody because you want them to change, you don't really love them, and you should honestly leave them alone. Because if they're not good enough for you as who they are, you need to let them go. Like, for example, I've had a couple guys who I've dated who are really, really good guys, but they didn't have space for me. Or things didn't align. Or, like, our faith didn't align. We didn't share similar values. I could try to shrink my values or change the things that, like, really sit on my heart, or wish for them to change, or I could just let them be who they are, respect who they are, and move on. You know what I mean? So stop looking at potential. If you've never heard of it, limerence is a big thing, and that's basically building a fantasy world. I was really, really good at that in my early 20s. Limerence over, like, one person. Like, oh my God, they're going to take care of everything. They're going to fix all my problems. La da 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 da. Like, ugh. Makes me sick to talk about now, honestly, because it's just like, what were you doing? Tolerating mistreatment. No. Experienced unhealthy and abusive dynamics in some cases. Abusive, yes. And I know people throw like the words narcissistic and abusive around, but I went to a therapist, and I'm not going to justify the abuse that I lived through. But I did tolerate mistreatment and abuse. I shouldn't have, but here's the thing. I don't want to say should, because whatever. I wish I would have known better. But when you're with somebody, oftentimes, if they treat you a little bit better than you treat yourself, then you'll stay. Even if they treat you horribly. I really want you to think about that for a second. But if they treat you a little bit worse than you treat yourself, you're going to leave. Because it's like, okay, well, you're treating me worse than I can treat myself. We're going to unpack that at a later time. But tolerating mistreatment and convincing yourself that it's love or normal, or, like waiting for the good guy to come back, and like thinking the bad person is just a fluke. No. Whole head shake. No tolerating mistreatment over here. These are the things I learned. And lack of boundaries. Like I said, I didn't speak up when things fell off or felt off. I didn't speak up when things felt off. And I walked on eggshells instead of standing firm. I didn't have a backbone. But that's kind of what I saw modeled to me. That's kind of what I picked up. And it's no blame or it's just, it is what it is. We all get dealt a hand of cards. I love my parents deeply. I love the people in my life, my family deeply. And you can pick up habits and things that you definitely necessarily don't want to hold on to. My deeper realization. So as I had these experiences, and it was years and years of these experiences, something finally shifted. because back in that time, my thought was like, there was no good men. There are no good men anywhere. There's no good men in the world. Blah, 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 blah. I'm going to be alone forever. The truth was, though, I wasn't in a place to recognize a good man or even acknowledge what that looked like or receive them because I was the problem, right? At some point, you have to realize that the common denominator of your relationships and the common denominator of your life is you. Oh, I hate it. Don't you love it? That's the truth, though. And I say that with so much love because I've been there. I was like, there's no good men. And then, building my relationship with God, he was just kind of like, do you even know what a good man looks like? Could you even handle that? Because I realized that chaos felt normal. Healthy didn't feel familiar. I didn't grow up in healthy. I didn't put myself in those healthy environments. So, honestly, nice guys were boring. I was like, y'all, you're just nice? What? I was into bad boys. Ooh. I don't really like bad boys that much anymore because it's too much. You know what I mean? Anyway, we're getting off topic. So the shift for me, the major turning point, was a relationship I had in my early 20s. And it was abusive in every way but physical. Until it reached physical. One time. Got my hands put on one time. And then that was my line, like I said. And once I hit that line, I really had to wake up and be like, I can't live this way anymore. I really need to get help. I need to leave. It took me a month. Sometimes it'll take you a while. I was a very, very stubborn child. Teenager, early 20 girl. I was just stubborn. I'm going to do it my way. I'm a rebel. I'm going to figure it out. And you know what that did? Nothing but cause me pain and turmoil and strife. I don't like being a rebel anymore because that's still somebody else deciding my fate for me. So after that relationship, it forced me to have clarity. And I took time after. I didn't date, I think, for 1.5 years. I went to therapy that whole time. And I started reflecting and really healing. And I hope and pray that for you, it doesn't take something physical like that. Or something like rock bottom. I don't want you to have to hit rock bottom to change. But oftentimes, we as humans, we won't start doing something different until we're so fed up that we have no other choice. I don't want that for you. You know what I mean? But that's where I got. So that was 2020? 2019. Long time ago, feels like. So after that, started healing, started seeking, and then I really came into my relationship with God about 3 years ago. And this is important because it ties into the rest of this message. So if you don't believe in God, hang on anyway and listen to me because he loves you. I'm like, I hope you see my shirt. He loves you. Whether you believe in him or not, whether you know him or not, there's a God out there that loves you. And I'll get into that. Like, I had a realization. I was going through a tough time in 2024. I was just over it. I was over the dating scene. I reached out to a friend. I was like, hey, girl. She ended up taking me to a sermon because her church was doing a series on relationships. Now, me, I've always wanted to be married. I thought a prince was going to swoop in to save me and we were going to live happily ever after and I was going to get married. And, like, not to say that that's not going to happen, but that's not how it goes. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to be saved, right? And if I do, the only person that can save me is myself, not another person. Or God. God's really good at that too. But my shift in that sermon, I realized that I was asking God for a husband, but I wasn't preparing to be a wife. I was asking God for a husband, but I wasn't learning how to take care of that husband. Because from what I've learned, I have a lot of married friends, is that marriage is self-sacrifice. Marriage is tying yourself and all your baggage and all your family drama to somebody else and themselves and all their family drama and all their baggage to you. Like, it doesn't make it easier. Like, sure, it's a blessing. Marriage is a covenant. It's a blessing. but that's not going to solve your problems. And I was in a space where I was wanting marriage to solve my problems. And God was like, actually, marriage will just expose the problems you already have. So why am I going to give you someone that you don't know how to be with? And in a season, in a space, you don't know how to sow those blessings properly. You know what I mean? So I had to take responsibility for my repeating patterns, for choosing comfort over growth, and for continually and consistently abandoning myself. I don't do that now. I have my moments where I'll slip back for a day or an hour or a moment and, want it to be easier or whatever, or just, sometimes it gets lonely, but I'd rather be single and learning and growing and happy than married and miserable. Not saying the married people are miserable. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you marry wrong or you choose wrong, like I'm not willing to choose wrong. I'm letting God take care of that, and this is where he has me. So the core truth that I told you earlier, and this was something I really realized, I wasn't afraid of being abandoned by others. I was actively abandoning myself. So there's a new perspective you have to have. When you're asking for a partner, do you think about their values and their character and the things that they find important? Or do you think about how tall they are and what muscles they have and how attractive they are? Like, don't get me wrong. I like a man with muscles. I like an attractive man. Sue me, okay? But the character and the values and the alignment of faith come first. That's more important. And you have to become that person that you're asking for. So I can't be asking for somebody who communicates well, who has strong values, who's walking with the Lord, who, is good with their family, if I'm not doing those same things. You have to attract what you want. You have to become what you want to attract. Okay? You can't build a healthy relationship without identity, standards, and self-respect. I'm going to say that one more time. You cannot build a healthy relationship without identity, standards, and self-respect. And I hear you people in the back going, well, you're not in a relationship. Yes, I am. I'm in a relationship with myself. The most important relationship besides the one I have with God. I have one with him too. We talk, we chop it up, we beef sometimes because he knows. I'm like, bro, did you lose my husband in the mail or something? I don't know. But anyway, but you cannot build a healthy relationship without those things. You have to focus on yourself first. Like it doesn't, nobody's going to fix you. I'll say that, like that is the biggest thing I've taken away from my time in relationships over the years is you cannot wait for somebody else to do your fixing. Like you have to choose to fix yourself, to come face to face with your shortcomings, to choose yourself. Like nobody else is going to give that to you. Love doesn't fix your life. It doesn't. Unless it's the love of God. It just doesn't. It reflects where you are. So, yeah, you really, really got to choose what kind of partner you want because the wrong one, like I said, can drain, distract, and derail you. So let's reframe singleness. So I don't know if y'all are married out there or dating or single. I'm going to be honest, being single at 29, it can feel hard and lonely at times. But it's better than being in the wrong relationship. And I'm choosing growth over settling. And I'm working on choosing alignment over attention. There are pretty people everywhere. But where's the substance? Okay? Where's the substance? I can't live without substance. I need depth. So I want for you, and I don't know where you're at. Maybe you're in a great relationship and you're super healthy and you got it all figured out. If so, brava. Or bravo, I don't know. But I'm proud of you because that takes effort and that takes work. If you're not, I want you to stop abandoning yourself. Stop abandoning yourself. The only person that's really going to be with you until the day that you die is you. The only person on this earth currently walking around day in and day out. You can't break up with yourself. Okay? I want you to start building confidence and standards in yourself. Not just what you can do, not just in what you give, not just in the ways that you help other people, but who you are, right? Who you are. And I want you to choose people not from a place of emptiness or loneliness or scarcity, but I want you to choose from a place of wholeness and completeness and security. You know, I had a guy that I was on Hinge for a little bit, honestly, because it was kind of a learning experience. I wanted to get to know who I wanted in relationships, and it was a very, very eye-opening experience because I stayed in my bubble, but I was courting, essentially. And one of the guys was like, you know, you don't want to be saved. You don't need to be fixed. Like, he was surprised by my stability, I guess you would say. And honestly, that was kind of a compliment because you shouldn't need to be saved. Relationships aren't about being saved or being needed. I don't want you to need me. I don't want you to need me to fix you. I want to be wanted. For me, I'm at this place in my life. I'm independent. I pay my own bills. I don't rely on anybody else. My paycheck comes into my bank account. Okay? I'm big money. Like, I say it silly. It makes me laugh. But, like, I do not answer to anyone. And I could not always say that. And I don't rely on anybody to pay my bills or, you know, pay my half or pay my groceries. No, I got that my damn self. Excuse my French. But I want someone. I want someone to share life with. I want someone to enjoy life with and grow old with, you know? But it's nice to not have to need that. But I don't want to be independent forever, but it's a solid place to be, right? So I'm going to close this out because I know this is 30 minutes long. I already know it. I'm going to give you a call to action. I'm going to ask you to reflect a little bit for yourself. I want you to ask yourself, I want to write this down, do a voice note, what have you, but I want you to ask yourself, what pattern keeps showing up in my relationships? Am I abandoning myself? Am I people-pleasing? Am I accepting treatment that I know I'm better than? Am I settling? Am I just in this relationship because I'm lonely? Like, I want you to evaluate these things. And once you evaluate what's going on, where am I abandoning myself? Am I not speaking up? Am I not taking accountability? Or am I not, standing tall in my worth? Because you were made beautiful in the image of God. And He created you to be exactly who you are. Now, yes, you're not perfect. Congrats. Welcome to the club. Nobody's perfect, as Hannah Montana so lovely put. Nobody's perfect. Welcome. But that doesn't mean that you're any less lovable. Nobody else decides your worth. Nobody else decides your worth but the one who created you. And that's, I think, I'm going to go off on a tangent a little bit here. Just a short one. Stay with me. That's why I think I'm so deeply in love with God. Because He left the 99. He left everybody else to come find me. And to come remind me of my worth. And tell me He loved me. And it's hard not having a husband yet. But it's not time yet. If I don't have one. And I don't need to have a husband to be worthy. I don't need to have a husband to have worth. I'm worthy as I am. So I just wish that for you, because I feel like sometimes we can just get so wrapped up. And I mean, it's this societal culture of like, oh, a prince is going to come and save you. If you've never listened to Cinderella by Cheetah Girls, I'm going to need you to take a listen to it after this. Because they talk about that. Nobody's going to come save me. Like, nobody's going to come save you. It was a lie, okay? Disney, you have great storytelling, but you are a liar, okay? We're not damsels in distress. You can write your own story. You can make your own magic. Your own, space. Like, you can live in your own space, right? You can create your own life. You don't have to rely on anybody else. And how does your heart actually feel right now? Like, how are you? I know people ask that question. It's like, oh, I'm good, I'm fine. Oh, the kids, I'm busy, da-da-da. But, like, how is your heart? My heart is full of talking to y'all, but also it's a little sad. You know, whenever I talk about relationships, it's like, dang. You know, but I know that I'm learning and I'm growing. And that'll come. Go deeper than I'm good. Get honest about your emotional state, where you are. Get honest about your desires. And I would really love for you to get honest about your misalignments. Because they're there. You just have to be aware of them. So, in closing, this was kind of a heavy, vulnerable week for me. I'm still going to post this. You know, I feel like some of it was a little bit of word vomit and some of it was really from the heart. Maybe it was all, I don't know. You know, this process of becoming is so challenging sometimes. But it's important to do it from a strong identity. And if you don't have a strong identity, open your Bible. And if you don't have a Bible, get a Bible. And if you don't want to get a Bible, go to church. Because Bible is sometimes hard to understand. That was not a very grammatically correct sentence, but whatever. But I feel like I made peace with where I'm at in life because I know that there is one that will always love me, and that is God. And that He always has the best for me. And we can debate that in the comments. Everything is always working out for your good. Whether it feels good at the time or not. I can say that because I can look back at my life and all those horrible relationships and all those terrible decisions that I made. And the consequences of those decisions I experienced because that was my choice. But how God brought me through that and was able to use those things. And even is still now in this very podcast. Well, it's going to be this YouTube channel. I guess I'll need a podcast soon. But in this very YouTube channel, He is using those experiences to give you new perspective. And you can say, yeah, Joy, that's you. Yeah, it is me. But it was God that got me through it. Because if I had to rely on my own strength, I wouldn't be here. Literally or figuratively. So this was a heavy one. Take a breath or an ice cream. I'm going to go get my dinner because I'm hungry. But I'm proud of you all for showing up. Thank you if you stayed the whole length of this episode. I'm going to get kind of vulnerable over the next couple weeks. Because next week, we're talking about the relationship with yourself. So we talked about that a little bit today. I'm going to dive into that. And I want to give you guys blueprints to really take ownership of how awesome you are. God, this is cheesy. I don't care. Anyway, I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for being here. I really want us to live joyfully, and I'm really, really grateful that we get to do that together. I will see you guys next time.